Bethesda just announced some new games. And although I do want to talk about the two new games, Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop in particular, because with that game there are several things not totally clear from the trailer that may even get you a bit more hyped. Although with all of this actually came the pretty big announcement that both Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo will be limited time exclusives on PlayStation 5. And there's a lot to infer from all of this. Their announcements alone, some of their leaks that came beforehand, and of course that PS5 exclusivity deal. So in this video I want to go over that, the new games coming from Bethesda. First off though, let's talk about some of the broader impacts of these new announcements and what it could actually mean for the company overall. I just recently posted a video discussing what games you can expect to see or hear about from Bethesda. And in fact, I put the two most likely as Ghostwire and Deathloop, so here's an obnoxious pat on my own back for a somewhat obvious prediction. But this also has the fairly definitive implication that Bethesda is not hosting their own digital conference in 2020, or at least not summer of 2020. Technically that's not confirmed, but it kind of is. We saw this tweet from Pete Hines earlier on saying Bethesda would not host a digital E3 replacement conference in June. Some people are like, well, what about in July, August, September? But the fact that their two big game announcements just happened at a PS5 event, and we know that a new Fallout 76 gameplay trailer is coming next week at an IGN event, basically confirms Bethesda will only be partaking in some of these other standalone events, not hosting their own this year, which is totally fine, but it also makes it significantly less likely we see Starfield, because if they had Starfield, they probably would host their own event because that'll draw enough attention. Outside of that, something pretty interesting is this announcement of PS5 exclusivity kind of leaked. It didn't leak directly, but just yesterday, if you watched to the end of my Fallout 76 video, I actually mentioned how one user on Twitter named Teamer222 actually found how one employee at PlayStation was tasked with handling relationships between PlayStation and Bethesda Softworks, which could have suggested that there would be a larger collaboration between the two companies going forward, and lo and behold, we now have two PS5 exclusives, which is kind of surprising because Bethesda has had a fairly large presence with Xbox in the past. Large in part, this is Bethesda Game Studios, the developers between Fallout, Starfield, Skyrim, but of course, yes, then also comes the news that both Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo will be PS5 exclusives. And to be clear with that one, it means that it'll release as a console exclusive on PS5, but also on PC. So both of them will release on PS5 and PC at the same time, and maybe Xbox? That's actually one part about this that is kind of unclear. If you actually look at the pages that confirm the exclusivity, the way they're worded almost make it seem like it is a perpetual exclusive. Deathloop described as a next-gen shooter coming exclusively to PS5, and Ghostwire Tokyo described as a next-gen action-adventure game coming to consoles exclusively for PlayStation 5 in 2021, although also launching on PC. But then we have this tweet from Jeff Keighley that makes it seem like it actually will be a limited time exclusive. This seems likely, although based off the wording on the official posts of these two games, I feel like it might be a long exclusivity, like not just a couple of months, but an actual year of PS5 exclusivity when it comes to console. So you Xbox players actually kind of get the short end of the stick here. And just overall, this is bad. As I was making this video, I thought to myself, has anyone ever said, I'm so happy this game is a Xbox exclusive or a PlayStation exclusive, or even on the rare case, a PC exclusive? PC exclusives sometimes have a further justification behind them, easier distribution, unique control scheme, but when it comes to consoles, it really is just a money thing. On both of these games, Bethesda, of course, had their blurbs as to why it's so uniquely positioned to be successful on the PS5, that unique controller or some other unique sound design, because of course, nobody else could have good sound design. But in reality, this deal is PlayStation is giving money to Bethesda, or money more directly to these two different developers, Arcane and/or Tango Gameworks, to only release on their platform. And frankly, to me at least, I find this disappointing for a couple of reasons. One, that it's Bethesda, and although Bethesda has had some exclusivity in the past, not to this degree. Two new major titles being released only on one console is pretty unprecedented for them. We of course have seen other things like reveals during Xbox events and just a clear partnership with Xbox, but full-on exclusivity is somewhat unique and for me, not positive. Now to be fair, a couple of biases here. One, I definitely prefer Xbox, it's what I grew up playing, but I also predominantly play and record on PC, so I don't really have as much skin in the game as some of you who just are Xbox exclusive players. But even further, I find this disappointing because these games just look good. Deathloop in particular, as you'll hear me describe in a moment, is something I'm actually really excited for after this trailer. Before this trailer, I wasn't really thinking too much of it, but after it, I'm definitely going to be buying this game day one, or hey, Bethesda, if you want to give me a review code. With these two new consoles, there'll be that mad dash for market share, and you just kind of hoped that console exclusivity would be a thing of the past, but instead, right off the bat, just as we start to really get a glimpse at this cool new content at next-gen tech, we're already getting it in our face again. So for me at least, I'm not going to go on some 10-minute rant for this, but I just find myself being disappointed, more so than anything else. It'll be interesting to see how this deal actually works out. Is it going to be something we see more of? If you think back to Xbox One and PS4, some of those deals ended up being generation long. Game companies kind of just favoring one console over the other for a while. Could we see that now with Bethesda and PS5? In the past, of course, there have been some controversies between PlayStation and Bethesda, so this is quite the shift. Although, of course, there are potential benefits from this. Maybe Bethesda got an influx or just a good amount of money from this, making some additional aspects of these games possible. That does tend to be one of the benefits of console exclusivity. It's kind of a safer choice. You get more money now. But one of the issues with that, or at least that I take with that, it doesn't really seem like Bethesda is struggling. They're a big company. I feel like they wouldn't have to rely on this. But moving away from that, we of course also have the games themselves. First, I want to talk about Deathloop because again, this is one I'm really excited for. And actually, surprisingly, not showcased in the trailer. It's coming out in holiday of 2020. Of course, that again, only being for PS5 and PC, but overall I feel like the initial takeaway from the trailer and details are it looks and seems like it'll feel very similar to Dishonored, which of course this is the same devs of Dishonored, so that's not shocking. It's described how during this you're going to be able to fight, sneak, and sabotage your way past many baddies. The enemies in this game being members of the Aeon program. The story premise is actually pretty interesting. You find yourself on an island where this rich guy is throwing a party. Your goal is to actually assassinate 8 targets on that island, and fortunately, all of them were invited to the big party at his mansion. Except you are actually in a time loop. So each day at midnight, the day resets and you have to start all over again. Unless you actually manage to kill all 8 targets, then you can free yourself from the loop and hypothetically live a great life again. It really seems like this will be a fairly open world or open experience game. It's described how you can take down these 8 targets in any order or way you want. We could see things like stealth gameplay, more upfront bruiser gameplay. There definitely will be multiple play styles for success here. And of course, all throughout the trailer, you could see several of the supernatural abilities as they are described and weapons. For the supernatural abilities, they seem fairly straightforward, at least based off what we could see. You could teleport or jump to one location. You could throw enemies or pull enemies or choke enemies, but when it comes to weapons, it looks like there'll be a good amount of variety in them. Just even from these screen grabs, you could see a lot of variety here, and even some unique things. Dual wielding, at least for pistols, will be present, and even there's this one sequence where something unique happens to the weapon you are holding. It's not really totally clear what. But this game comes with a pretty massive twist, although the primary focus, of course, is going to be that single-player story experience, taking down these 8 targets and trying to end your loop. There also is a multiplayer component. Although suggested by the trailer, I feel like that wasn't totally clear. So in your same time loop, while you're trying to take down these 8 targets, there's also a different assassin trying to defend them. And that can either be an AI or a separate player. The way this will work is you could just play the main story or alternatively enter into the multiplayer mode and join another player's story, where you'll act as that other assassin. And this seems fairly open, like your role will just be taking down the other player or trying to inhibit them as much as possible. But don't fret because it's totally optional. If you don't want anyone joining your single player experience, you can disable that and it'll only be an AI controlling that character. This is pretty cool to me. It's a very unique take on a multiplayer aspect, somewhat similar to Doom Eternal, but this one sounds actually fun. And again, it really is reinforced that that is a small aspect of this experience. The main focus is the story, the single player aspect. The multiplayer thing is more of just a unique twist that is there. Overall, I think the art style of this one and just the variety in ways to actually upgrade yourself and take advantage of the tools at your disposal to accomplish a goal is pretty cool. I've always really loved open experiences like that. You have these options, you can do what you want with them, this is your end goal. Although one thing that did stand out to me, it just seems like, based on the description, based on the trailer, this will be a smaller game. That's totally unsubstantiated, just based off all the information I just showed you, but that's the vibe I get from it. But then moving on, we have Ghostwire Tokyo, which is coming out in 2021, also a PS5 and PC exclusive. The premise of Ghostwire Tokyo is that Tokyo is under siege from the Paranoidal, them being referred to as visitors in the game. 99% of the people have been wiped out, but one, we are survivor, and it seems like it's largely a hero story. We're responsible for saving the city, but also we somehow have contracted paranormal powers of our own, and you can see this somewhat throughout the gameplay. Some kind of Dragon Ball Z-esque fireball effect, and a couple of other ones that look interesting, but there's not much to say about it. It just looks cool. It's described how this other shadowy group also lives here, but their role or motive isn't totally clear. I have to imagine that'll be one of the main components of this story. Overall, it's described as an action-adventure game, kind of similar to their past game with The Evil Within, with one of the main components being those visitors you encounter. Several are described more explicitly, and be prepared because I'm going to butcher these names. The Amawarashi, a young kid in a raincoat who will call for help but brings out other spirits when threatened. The Shirumuku, this visually appears like a bride and is a physical manifestation of emotions, representing regret and feelings for the partner that she could not marry. And then finally, the Kuchisaki, which is actually based off a real-life urban legend. It seems like this will be a more fast-paced and almost overt enemy. And I actually love this line from the article. It's described to be careful if she asks you if you find her attractive. There are no right answers there. And it seems like through this game, we're going to be uncovering the mystery of what exactly happened to Tokyo. Who are these new visitors? Who are these mysterious people? We ourselves will have our own powers, which are upgradable, as well as you can see this magic-looking bow and arrow at one point. And one of the big takeaways I had from this was it actually has a really cool or interesting art style. There's a lot of quick shots in the trailer, but if you actually freeze some of those frames and look at them just as still images, you can see it really is a cool looking game, very unique. A lot of the enemies are interesting, just mysteriously floating, having no head, because why not? And even though this is supposed to be gameplay, a larger look at the game, I still don't fully understand what the game will play like. Is it just periodically fighting these enemies, trying to progress the story? Obviously, there won't be a lot of interactions. Are there notes, lore to read? Either way though, I find both of these games interesting. For me, Deathloop really selling me, and I'm very hyped to experience that later this year. I'll likely make some videos on it, but I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. What do you think about these two games? What do you think about the PS5 exclusivity? Are you disappointed we didn't see Starfield? Were you actually expecting that, or just kind of hopeful? Either way though, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.